I regularly ask potential coaching clients, what do you want? Sometimes they'll say something along the lines of, I'm too scared to say it out loud. What if it doesn't come true? When they finally share their secret desire with me, it sometimes includes walking the stage at their company convention. Then I'm able to let them know that I have a process to make that happen. I've used it myself and with many other leaders to get them into the top 10. I'm working to become more efficient, so I created a guide called 5 Ways to Get in the Top 10 so I could share it with them after the complimentary coaching session. Recently, I realized I didn't have to wait until someone booked a complimentary coaching session with me. I could share it with way more people if I just put it on my website and pointed more people to it. So, if you'd like to know the 5 steps to get into the top 10 at your company, go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com/top dash 10. And that's TEN spelled out. And I'll send you the guide so you can start the process.
Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rock star direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jenny will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger.
Welcome back to another episode of Badass Direct Sales Mastery. I'm your host, Jenny Bellinger, and I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to share my guest with you today, because if you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, you know we talk a lot about B&I. And today I have with me the founder and chief visionary officer of B&I, Dr. Ivan Misner. Now, if you don't know what B&I is, and you've been hearing me talk about it, it is the world's largest business networking organization. It was founded in 1985, and there are now over 11,000 chapters, 325,000 members in 76 countries around the world. And we as members have created 15.1 million referrals in the last 12 months, resulting in 23.3 billion with a B dollars worth of business for us, the members. Now, Dr. Misner is a New York Times bestselling author who has written 29 books, including his newest, The Third Paradigm, A Radical Shift to Greater Success. And he is called the father of modern networking by both Forbes and CNN, and is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking. Oh, and in his spare time, he is also an amateur magician and a black belt in karate. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hey, thank you so much, Jenny. It's great to be on. And I love the name of your show.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's a great name.
Well, I figured when I got it started, who doesn't want to be a badass? Who doesn't want to master their business? This is a perfect fit. So,
Perfect.
So Dr. Misner, for those who don't know, can you share with everybody the quick beginnings of how B&I got started and how it has had a relationship with the MLM industry for the past 40 years?
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to call me Ivan, please.
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
So I started B&I in 1985. I'd like to tell you I had this vision of an international organization with groups all over the world. Like you said, over 11,100 chapters worldwide. But I needed referrals for my consulting practice. I was a management consultant, and I put together people I trusted. I hoped they trusted me and we'd pass business. But what I discovered was that most business people didn't really know how to generate referrals, and they were looking for referrals. And we don't teach this in colleges and universities. So people kept asking me to open up a second chapter, a third chapter, a fifth chapter. And at the end of the year, we had 20 chapters and I wasn't trying. It was amazing. And by the way, in our very, very first chapter, we had a direct marketing, a network marketing company. It was in our very first chapter of B&I. And so there's a long history of participation in the organization, although B&I is not multi-level marketing or network marketing, we do have members who are in that profession, depending on the country, because there are some countries that are more open to it than other countries. But
Sure.
we absolutely welcome them and where they're allowed. And we've had great success with them as members for the last, believe it or not, almost 40 years. We're coming up on the 40th anniversary of BNI. You mentioned 23.3 billion. And thank you for closed business. That's the amount of business our members generated. Here's an interesting statistic. If you take a look at the United Nations estimates of GDP, gross domestic product, there are actually 100 countries in the world with a lower GDP than what BNI generated for its members in 2023. That blows my mind. 100 countries in the world with a lower GDP.
That's amazing, because there's what, like 180?
Oh, yeah, easily, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So BNI as a business for the members, right? Because it's not BNI that's necessarily making that money. It's the members, right? It's the thank you for right. So with this, I mean, because the conversation I regularly have with other BNI members about network marketers, or with especially network marketers who are in BNI, and you already referred to it, is that there are people in business who don't know how to teach others to refer them. So how do you recommend that people, especially in network marketing, because they get a lot of those tier one referrals that we talk about, which is the referrals from within their chapter, but how do they get outside of that?
Well, the key is to understand that when you go to a group like BNI, which is a referral group, we meet every week, we're generating relationships and referrals, is that you're there to train a sales force, not close a sale. And that's a different mindset. You're there to teach people how to refer you. Now, many of them will do the tier one. They'll say, well, I'd like to try your product. It's great. That's a great way for them to get to know, like, and trust you, to know your product better. But the goal really is to get referrals. And so what you want to do, and this is counterintuitive, what happens in a lot of BNI groups is people will go there and they'll try and say everything they do in the time allotted, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, depending on the size of the chapter. But that's a mistake. What's better is to be laser specific, to talk about one product, one service, one benefit of a product or a service, so that you're constantly educating people on how to refer you effectively.
Oh, I love that. And it's something that you would think is common sense, but I think it possibly comes from the place of people not understanding. Like, they think, okay, I've got these people here. I've got 30 to 60 seconds. Yeah. Let me cram as much as I can in. And they're creating the opposite of what they actually want.
That's exactly right. Because, if you're trying to say everything you do, you can't do that in less than a minute. And so with BNI, you're getting together every week. So over the course of a year, you've got almost an hour's content. So don't jam it all into 1 week. Talk about one product or one service each week. I just had somebody literally 2 weeks ago, a direct marketing company, talking about a product that they had that helped with bug bites. I live in Austin, Texas, and we got lots of insects and ticks and fleas, and I'm on 10 acres. And it's this oil from this direct marketing company. And I was like, wow, I never heard of that. And because they were so specific, this product is good for many things, but also for this particular issue, that if you put it on, you're not putting caustic, anti-bug spray on you. You're using something natural.
Right.
And I bought it because they were so specific in their presentation. And that's the difference it makes. If you do that week in and week out over a period of time, then you're training your referral team how to refer you.
Ah, I love that. And one of the interesting things I've seen in the 13 years that I've been in has been, it's interesting when a chapter brings someone in from network marketing and they're kind of maybe a little trepidatious with this person to try and get to know them, figure them out. But what I see happen very, very often is the network marketers seem to be very good at passing referrals and bringing visitors. Why do you think that is? I have my own theory.
Well, I think by the very nature of the business, they are out networking. They're connecting with people. They're going to events. They're going to groups. They're meeting people. I think what happens with a lot of businesses, is that they become cave dwellers. They get up in the morning, they're in this large cave with a big screen TV. They go out into this little cave with four wheels called their car. They drive to this other cave with computers called their office. They stay there all day long. And at the end of the day, they get back into the little cave with four wheels and drive back to the large cave with the big screen TV. Worse yet, after COVID, we have people that aren't even getting into the cave with four wheels, and they're working from home more than they did in the past. And I think that's the reason that people in the direct sales industry understand that networking, you got to get belly to belly with people and chat with them.
Right. It's really interesting to see. And I agree. It's because it's so much easier to say, hey, why don't you come meet my trained referral team? Why don't you come meet my business associates?
Yeah.
Than it is to even sell your own product sometimes. Right.
Yeah. A lot of people have figured that out, and it makes all the difference in the world. There are several people, and I've talked about this in some podcasts, that they have told their assistant at the front desk, put every cold call through. I'll take them all. And, the assistants are like, what, really? Yes. And they take the cold call and they say, okay, yeah, I'm willing to meet with you. But on Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. I'm at a networking meeting, come to that, or whatever time it is, lunch, whatever time it is,
right.
Whatever day it is, I'll meet you, bring plenty of business cards because it's a business meeting that I go to every week, and I'll meet you there. And those people get the most new members into a chapter than almost anyone else.
Oh, yeah. I heard you talk about that on the podcast, and I started doing the same. Although I'm one of those people who works from home, and I have since 2011, but anybody who comes to the door, knocks on the door to, can I inspect your roof? Can I talk to you about pest control? Can I get any of those? I'm like, you can talk to me, but not right now.
Yeah.
And then I invite them to my meeting.
And bring plenty of business cards.
Exactly. And I'm like, and I promise, I tell them, if you show up, I will sit with you for 20 minutes afterwards, and you can tell me all about your stuff. So that's
fair.
It seems fair to me. And those who show up oftentimes end up talking to a bunch of other people. I have my 20-minute conversation with them. By the end of it, they're a member. And it works out pretty well. So in addition to then the referral piece, and something that you and I talked about in the pre-interview was the way that some network marketers, or the way BNI has it set up for network marketers and direct sellers who are in BNI, and how they can sell products, but the business opportunity is allowed to be or should be pursued at a different time. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, and this is this gets a little controversial with some direct sales people, where they're like, no, I'm going to talk to anybody I want. Well, look, you can talk to anybody you want if you want to fail. I've been doing this 40 years. And, some people think I'm pretty good at this. And I'm here to tell you that that's the wrong way to do it, because, getting lawyers and bankers and, real estate agents to think like that in a group meeting is counterproductive. Instead, what you want to do is open that door in a one-to-one conversation with them. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't mind. We think that the direct sales companies should be there to present their product, their service that they have to offer. And then one-to-one, if they see an opportunity to talk about the business opportunity, feel free to do that on a one-to-one basis. And I talk about that in a podcast that I did years ago, episode number 215, MLMs in BNI. BNI is not a multi-level marketing or direct sales organization. We're a franchise, but we welcome them in BNI, and have since, like I said, chapter number 1, we had MLM company in.
Right. And my own experience when I first started in BNI was when I was with my first direct sales company, was I hadn't read the guidelines yet. And I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to talk about the business opportunity during my sales manager moment, my weekly presentation. And I did. And it did turn off some of the members. And I had to play a lot of relationship capital catch-up game to get back into the place, and then realize, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then my business started growing even faster, because then people were willing to have the one-to-ones, and then I let them ask,
I would,
about that.
I'll double check. I don't know that it's formally part of one of the guidelines of BNI, but it is a recommendation for sure.
Gotcha.
It's not, because our guidelines are, you really need to do this.
Right.
Policies are, you really must do this. And I don't know that it might have been added as a guideline, but I know it's a strong recommendation based on many years of seeing it work right and work wrong. That's the reason we recommend it that way.
Right. No, and I think it makes perfect sense because in this case, it's all about the relationship. And what I regularly tell my coaching clients when we're talking about recruiting and bringing people in is you don't want to bring in everybody. It's just like a BNI chapter doesn't want to bring in everybody, because if you ask for everybody, you get everybody, including the people who are not necessarily a great fit. So.
Right. And, it surprises people to hear the founder of BNI say BNI is not for everyone. But the truth is, sometimes if you talk somebody into participating in BNI and they're not willing to put in the work, they're not successful, they're not happy. In a way, BNI is a little bit like a gym membership. You got to go.
Yeah.
Just signing up doesn't make you healthy. It doesn't make you fit. You got to go there and work out. You work out, you get fit. And the second part of that is just as important. I see people who, they'll be in BNI for a couple of years and they'll go, okay, I've got all these relationships. I can leave now and go to some other network. It's like, okay, so you've just left the gym that you have, become successful in. And now you're going to say, well, I'm healthy now. I'm not going to do this anymore. Huge mistake. You got to keep up. You want to be successful in business, you got to do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. It's the biggest mistake I've seen with entrepreneurs. Got it. And it doesn't have to be 6. It could be 5. It could be 7. But you do a handful of things and you do it over and over and over and over again consistently.
That I definitely agree with that, because as somebody with ADHD, I can be known to occasionally want to chase the shiny object.
Yes.
Of trying something new. And,
don't chase those bright shiny objects. I'll keep this. I know this is an audio, but I keep this. We can see each other in the Zoom. I keep this in my. It's a big crystal ball on a chain that, it's like a bright shiny object. People are constantly chasing these bright shiny objects that they hear about or see, and they're not doing the things that are known to be successful. Well, what are those things? Well, if you're in direct sales, it's podcasts like this.
Yeah.
It's the people that you trust who have experience and success in your industry. You listen to what they say, and then you do it over and over and over again. Don't start chasing a bunch of other ideas. We do conferences and conventions with BNI. And one of the things that I tell the directors when they go there, because they say, what should we be looking for? And one of the things I tell them is, ask the director where they are in traffic lights. Now, for those of you who aren't in BNI, traffic lights are a tool that we use to determine how successful a chapter is, a member is, and a region. And so I say to them, if you're talking to a director who's in the green, take notes, write everything down, do what they recommend. If you're talking to a chapter that's in the yellow or in the gray, don't pay any attention to anything they say. So find mentors who are successful and follow what they have to say and do it over and over and over again.
Right. I'm getting ready to put out a new resource for people, and it's based on the KISS principle. Keep it simple, sweetie. Other people like a different second S word. I prefer keep it simple, sweetie.
Yeah, I've heard a few different S words that are used.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh. And so we've talked a lot about that. Now I want to talk about the book, The Third Paradigm, because I've read quite a few of your books. Many of them are right here behind me. Not that anybody who's listening right now can see them, but one of my favorites so far is Infinite Giving. But I've just gotten started with The Third Paradigm. So can we quickly address Infinite Giving? Because, it applies not just to BNI. It goes to all kinds of ways of being in the world and business.
It really does. And it's based on the principle of giver's gain, which is one of the core values of BNI. And to me, giver's gain is more than a phrase. It's a way of living one's life. It's a perspective to view and interact with the world. It's an attitude, not an expectation. And when it's applied properly, it will change your life. And when it changes enough lives, it'll change the world. And that's what we talk about in the book, Infinite Giving. It's a quick read. You can read it in 2 hours or less.
Oh, yeah. It's a really quick read, and it's incredibly powerful. I actually read it out loud to my fiance as we were driving up to Chicago to visit his daughter at college. So that's how quick a read it was. We still had time left over after the book was over before we got to her apartment. But so The Third Paradigm now, your newest book, is about shifting thought patterns within business. So can you give us a quick overview of this?
The first paradigm is competition. And in the turn of the century, from the 1800s to the 1900s, it was all about competition, scientific management, put the other person out of business. By the 60s, you were getting cooperation, theory X, theory Y, and management by objective. These kinds of concepts were, collaborative, working together. And, people started talking about, companies started talking about the fact that people actually are kind of important. They're an asset in the business. I know.
Right.
But when you look before that, the 50s and earlier, people were just a tool, and they weren't, considered really an asset for the business. The third paradigm is co-creation. And a great example of co-creation, because a lot of people haven't heard the phrase, is crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is the perfect example of co-creation. Open source is another example of co-creation. So the book talks about co-creation, and we surveyed about 4,000 people to come up with the top characteristics and the biggest challenges of co-creation. And I'm going to tell you a secret, Jenny, that isn't in the book. Okay. Mm-hmm. The first part is in the book. Intertwined into every chapter is a story. And you've started it, so you probably at least heard the beginning of the story about Richard and the online platform that Richard was working on. And it started with competition, and then Richard went to cooperation. And later in the book, it talks about co-creation. The online platform, this is just between us, okay? We're not going to tell anybody else, right?
Okay.
Except for the thousands of people listening to the podcast.
Exactly.
The online platform is BNI Connect. Richard is my middle name.
Nice.
Yeah. So the story about Richard is really my story, but we didn't want to say that because we didn't want the book to just be about one of the story to be just about one of the co-authors. We wanted people to have the experience that I had without, it's just the author talking about, something that happened to him. So although I do say it from the stage and I do say it in interviews, in the book, we never say that I'm Richard.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I was just like, did you just give away the ending?
We did not. No. We didn't give away the ending. Although in the last chapter, we do a very unusual, you'll I think like the last chapter, rather than a summary chapter, we actually had the publisher interview us.
Oh.
So the last chapter is an interview with the publisher and the co-authors, my two co-authors and I. And the publisher does ask, is this story about Richard true? And my co-authors answer and say, yes, the story is true, and it's one of the authors.
We just left it there.
We just left it there.
That's super cool. Oh my gosh. Well, I do have to say that honestly, and this is, I think I told you this during the pre-interview, honestly, BNI is one of the biggest reasons that I, credit to my success and where I've gotten to where I am. The podcast is where it is, thanks to BNI members around the world sharing, because not just my local chapter. I'm going to give a shout out to Extreme Business Builders, Edwardsville, Illinois. Hey. And of course, I met you. And the reason you're on the show is because you and I were in the private coaching session for the Global Power Team during the national conference in May of 2024. And somebody at the end said, hey, Ivan, thank you so much for this. What can we do for you? And you asked for podcasts, and half the room pointed at me. And I'm sure my face was as red as the logo, because I was like, oh my gosh. And so that's how you were able to get here. So thank you for this, because
thank you for inviting me to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Because I regularly talk to network marketers about building their network. And one of the ways they can do that is through BNI if they want to really meet more people and be introduced by word of mouth referral. Because honestly, my best year in network marketing when I was in BNI for the company I was with, I was able to close $17,000 in sales just from BNI referrals alone. And so
that's fantastic.
It was really, really good for my business. And so I tell people, if you're not doing $17,000 to $20,000 in closed business by referral, you should look into BNI. It's definitely worth it, because in what I made from commissions, that paid for my BNI membership for years.
For years. Yeah.
Absolutely. In 1 year, for years. Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
It does. And I think people need to understand, and not just direct salespeople, everyone needs to understand that networking is more about farming than it is about hunting.
Ooh.
But it's about cultivating relationships with people. And when you're meeting with them every single week over a course of a time, you really build relationships with these people, and they want you to do well. They're there to help you do well. And of course, you're there to do the same for them. It's that whole philosophy of giver's gain. And I'm glad you read Infinite Giving. I tell you what, at the end of the year, I should have my next book done called Infinite Legacy.
Oh.
And it's about the legacy that we leave in the world, and not just millionaires, but what is the average person? What kind of legacy can the average person leave, as well as wealthy people? And
Right.
So you might find that book interesting. It's with the same co-authors, Julian Lewis and Greg Davies, joined me for this book, and we're almost done with the first draft.
Oh, that is so exciting. I'm glad that I get the little sneak peek of that. That's
Yes.
so cool. Because infinite giving, honestly, I've always been a fan of the giver's gain philosophy. So when the book came out and I heard all about it, I immediately bought it, and I should have brought it with me to conference to have you sign, but I had you sign with a room full of referrals. So I'll be at the next one.
Can I add one thing for the third paradigm that I think is really important?
Yeah.
One really important concept in there, because I talk about conflict, because when you're talking about co-creation, conflict is inevitable. And so how, and this is the Richard story, really talks about how to deal with conflict, to getting people to crowdsource concepts together. And one of the most important concepts that I talk about in the book is hold the vision, not the obstacles. If all you do is hold the obstacles, if all you do is focus on the problems, you become an expert at problems. What you have to do is focus on the solutions. Hold the vision, not the obstacle. Do you think I had obstacles when I started BNI in 1985? A boatload. Do you think we had obstacles when we were doing BNI Connect? Well, it's in the third paradigm. Yeah. What about during COVID? Oh my goodness, yes. We have obstacles today. You think there'll be obstacles tomorrow? There are always obstacles. You want to be successful in business, hold the vision, create a vision, hold the vision, communicate the vision, and don't obsess about the obstacles. Hold the vision, not the obstacles. An important note from the book.
I think that right there is a perfect way to wrap this up. So if somebody wants to get more of what you're doing, what's going on in the world, you have a blog, of course, where people can get more information from you. Can you tell us about the blog?
Yeah, it's ivanmisner.com. That's MISNER, ivanmisner.com. Other than the links to the books that are up there, it's all free content. I've been doing 2 blogs a week since 2007. So there are a lot of free blogs and content up there that anyone can go to and read and watch, because I do have some videos up there as well.
Oh, fantastic. Good. That is so good to hear. So if you want to hear Badass Crew, if you heard some of what Ivan said and you are interested in it, go check out ivanmisner.com. As you know, it is in the show notes. And just in case this is your first time listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery podcast, the way you get to the show notes is grab your phone, as long as you're not driving, click on today's episode, scroll under Ivan's picture, and you will see the links to Ivan's page and also to bni.com if you want to find a chapter near you. So, Ivan, thank you again for being here and sharing your experience, wisdom, and brilliance here with my audience. It has been my pleasure.
Truly my pleasure, Jenny, and hope to come back again sometime. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Badass Crew, you know how this goes. Stay tuned, because there's another badass episode on its way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast, so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.